Hello and welcome to the second session of the second day. We hope that you have now started enjoying the teleconferencing session and the ECP. In this particular session, we are going to discuss the topic, how to make a research proposal. All of you know that this is a compulsory component of your PGDHE program. This is part of your course 5. You are expected to write a research proposal and send it to the School of Education for approval. The School of Education will examine your research proposal. If the research proposal is okay, we send it back to you giving the approval. Otherwise, we usually request you to revise it based on certain suggestions. We keep this topic in our ECP teleconferencing session with a purpose because often we have seen the research proposals we receive have several shortcomings, and that actually affect your research work you do and the research report you present later on. So to avoid the later problems, it is better to write a good research proposal. It is always said that a well-written research proposal is half the research done, because usually a research proposal is all about what you are intending to do and how you will do it. So when you are so clear about what to do and how to do, your work becomes very easy. Otherwise, once you start doing your research, then you probably will come across several difficulties because you lack clarity. So through this session, we are trying to get you into thinking about how to make a research proposal. And as I said earlier, this is a compulsory component of your PGDHE program coming under course 5. To discuss this topic with you, I have my colleague Dr. Sanjay Mishra with me. Let me just introduce Dr. Sanjay Mishra. Dr. Sanjay Mishra is a reader at Stride, and he is associated with us in this PGDHE program. And I am Aisha Kannadi. Before we start discussing the details of a research proposal, let me just introduce what we are going to do in this more than 1 hour, about 1 hour 15 minutes or so. Let me also request you, please listen to Dr. Sanjay Mishra while he is making the presentation. It will be for about 20 minutes. While you are listening to him, or while you are taking part in the presentation, if you have any query, any question at that time, please write it and fax it to us. Any phone-in, my request is that you do it immediately after the presentation. So I hope you have understood what I said. You can fax in your questions even when the presentation is going on, which we will take up as soon as the presentation is over. And if you want to do the phone-in, please do it after the presentation. Now let us just take a look what we are going to do. We will first tell you about the overview and then the learning outcomes. So this is what we are going to do. We will discuss briefly what is research, types of research, the different types of research problems, and research designs. There are different research designs for the type of problem you choose. Based on that, research design also changes. Then finally we will come to the components of a research proposal, which is the focus of this particular session. So just to begin with, we will briefly go into the definition of research, types of research, research problem, research design. Then what are the learning outcomes? What do we expect you to achieve at the end of this session. We call it learning outcomes. That you should be able to plan a research project. You should be able to list the sections of a research proposal. You should be able to write a research proposal for the project work. So these are the learning outcomes, and we hope you should be able to do it at the end of this session when you sit down to work on your research proposal. So now let me just invite Dr. Sanjay Mishra to start with what is research.
Thank you, Dr. Aisha. Very good afternoon to all the students of PGDHE in various teleconferencing reception centers and regional centers. My best wishes and regards to all the content coordinators in various centers. As Dr. Aisha has mentioned, this session is very important from the point of view of the course 5 of PGDHE. I am sure all of you who are participating in this ECP, which is one of the very significant component of the postgraduate diploma in higher education, and as I have seen over the years, this ECP is exactly an interesting event in the life of this program, which gives a lot of opportunity to interact with the peer group. Unlike many other distance learning programs, this is a unique program that blends the use of technology as well and provides us different opportunities to interact with resource persons from headquarters in a structured manner. Within that context, this session has been organized particularly to look into research and how to design, how to prepare a good research proposal. And as we all know, research is considered to be the highest level of learning, and many a time it happens that we are facing kind of a problem that research means something very great, and therefore the myth surrounding research is in this session we would like to demystify those things. Particularly, we would like to emphasize that research is a systematic process, and that being the focus, I would like to emphasize that please bear with me for the presentation. Though I am going to make certain profound sentences here and there, those are sometimes debatable. Particularly in research, many things that are debatable and contestable, which one can ask questions, and therefore I expect there will be many more calls and also fax messages for commenting at our end. I expect that there will be many discussions. Some of you might already have been working with your proposals and already have prepared something. We can very well discuss with your content coordinators present in the centers there, and also you can clarify, ask certain questions based on your ideas so that we can clarify to make you a better proposal. And that's how this session has been planned that Dr. Aisha mentioned. Let me go to explain what actually we mean by research. When we talk about research, as I mentioned, that research is a systematic process of investigation into a problem. This is essentially the broad definition of research, but you will find that research is also conducted at various levels. Research is conducted at a master level, research is conducted at the MPhil level and the PhD level and the postdoctoral level, and also at different levels. One can say pure research, applied research, basic research, and fundamental research. All sorts of jargons are used. But essentially, if you look at research is a systematic process of investigation into a problem. A research is a original work. It's not a repetition of something that is already known to us. That means if you are taking a problem, we are trying to say that this problem has not been addressed in the way that I am going to deal in this program or in this research work. Somebody else might have done in a related area, but not in this area or not in the way that I am going to look into. Essentially, therefore, research, any kind of research, expand the knowledge and understanding of a particular phenomenon. That means whatever we have known so far, your research should be able to tell us something further. In the process, research attempts to answer questions like why and how, rather than kind of what happens. It tells us that why certain things has behaved in this manner, or how these things are going, what are the procedural steps involved, and things of that sort. So in a sense, research is something which is new. It's not repetition of the older things. It's a systematic process. Anything that you do should be in the systematic process. And as I mentioned, there are different types of research, and in research could primarily be divided into two categories: qualitative research and quantitative research. The qualitative research paradigm, we will say it's a paradigm of research. We will say qualitative, where issues related to human interactions, issues related to content analysis are dealt with. But the quantitative analysis, so that mostly deal with figures, and we do a kind of a survey, observation, or the other things where data are collected and the data are processed and the interpretation is followed on. Whatever kind of research that we follow in, whether it is qualitative or quantitative, any kind of research focuses on three basic fundamentals. That is, the research describes, the research explains, and research tries to predict. What is that? What does that mean? Describe how things are. It puts certain things in context to help how things are happening. It explains, as I mentioned earlier, how and why. It explains why things are the way they are. And if you go to another process of research, the prediction, the experimental research, it tries to establish relationships. It tries to give a causal effect. So research could be of various types. You can do research in the qualitative perspective, we can do research in quantitative perspective, and any perspective that you look at, you will try to explain, describe, or predict certain phenomena. So when you are looking at research, please look at from these kind of approaches. I would like to emphasize the research problem. The basic thing that starts with the research problem. And here I have just quoted a paragraph. I will read like this. The formulation of a research problem is far more often essential than its solutions, which may be merely a matter of mathematical or experimental skill. To raise new questions, new possibilities, to regard old problems from a new angle requires creative imagination and marks real advancement in science. This could be treated as something, given example from science, but you can see here that what is that real crux of a research problem. The real crux of a research problem is raising new question, and what is required from your perspective, it requires creative imagination, that you as a researcher have to imagine creatively when you look into a problem. It's not important that you derive and you arrive into a solution, but how you ask the question and how you look at the research problem is a major emphasis, particularly in this quotation. We would like to define very clearly a research problem as something that refers to the difficulty that you as a researcher would experience in the context of either a theoretical or practical situation, and to which you would like to obtain certain solution. And in that context, if you look at any problem that you come across, whether it is the student behavior in your classroom, whether a teaching learning issue, whether students' poor performance in a particular subject, anything, or in that senses that the students' attitudes towards your teaching method, the teaching evaluation that one can do in the classroom, any sort of issues that we come across in colleges and universities, including student unrest, use of libraries, use of the social environment, many issues that you can look into that happens around us. And in that process, when you are trying to define a research problem, you need to emphasize on your experience and the theoretical and the practical situations, and then you can very well come out with a good research problem. You might be wondering that, as I mentioned, from your surrounding context, but you might also wonder that how can I come out with a good research problem? A good research problem could be derived from three basic areas. The first I would like to see is that the kind of problems that are actually faced. The second one is your previous research, that you have done some research or some other colleague have done some research, or there are published research available that tells us that it is necessary that these are the unsolved problems that somebody faced in a particular research, and these needs further research. Most of the research work at the master's degree level or MPhil or the PhD level do provide a set of research questions that are probably not answered, or the researcher could not take because of certain limitation, and these further areas are suggested. So those things could be a pointers for looking into research problems. Similarly, there are a large number of educational theories, that large number of social theories that could also be the point of research for yourself, to look whether those theories hold good in a particular context. Those theories can be applied to your classroom scenario or not. How does these theories behave if you see from your context? So you can do research. Your research problem could originate from three areas. Your research, the problems that you face in day-to-day teaching learning transaction and the social context, previous research, published research available, and various educational theories. The next thing that comes to us is the writing a research problem. The writing a good research problem is very important. Particularly, you need to express your research problem clearly to undertake the research. Your research problem should be in a position to be amenable for test, that you can test your research problem probably in the form of a research hypothesis. That you can also ask the research problem in the form of an exploratory question, that you are going to explore the phenomenon, the research problem in a way to answer certain questions that are in your mind or that are played in the environment. In order to prepare the research proposal, you also need a kind of understanding of the research design. And this is the research design is also sometimes called the research proposal in that sense. The research design covers the totality of your action that you want to take. In that sense, it's a kind of a blueprint that guides you to undertake a research into a specific problem. What does the research design covers in? It's, as I said, it's a kind of research proposal where you also include issues of which kind of research methods and techniques that you would like to use, or why a particular research method is chosen over availability of 4 or 5 other research methods or techniques. So you need to explain a priori in your research design that why you are choosing a particular research method. The process of data collection, the process of sampling, sample size, the process of choosing the sample, why you are choosing a particular sample, that you have to give reasoning for that, and how the data collected you are going to use in particularly in your statistical interpretation and analysis. What kind of statistical techniques that you would like to use, whether you are using descriptive statistics, you are using inferential statistics, you would like to explain in the research design. The research design is essentially the blueprint on which you will work. I would say it's the pathways. I would say it's the path, it's a design, it's the plan on which you would like to work on. And in the process, you need also your clarification on various methods, techniques and tools. I have given you a different kind of approach to methods. We are all aware of different kind of methods in the science, that we say experimental method, we say survey method, we say a phenomenological method, and so many other terms. To clarify these things, I have tried to make it the methods as something exploratory, evaluative, experimental, and elaborative. I call it 4E. I say exploratory in the sense that you are trying to explore certain existing situation. Evaluative, when you are interested in trying to judge certain situations. Maybe how you as a teacher has performed in the classroom, you want to evaluate your teaching through some questionnaires distributed to the students at the end. So you are trying to do an evaluative exercise at the end, a kind of impact analysis kind of things that will come in evaluative studies. Experimental, where you have kind of a control group and experimental group. So you are trying to see effect of certain variables, and in that condition you are trying to create an experimental situation, and you have a control group by which you see the effect of experimental variable that you have introduced in the experimental group. The last one is elaborative. Most of the people use these things as descriptive research. Elaborative research is based on elaboration. I would say the elaboration of certain concepts, which might also include analysis of contents, which might include a qualitative paradigm as well. All these things, the methods could include a variety of research techniques, and I describe research techniques as surveys, which will include questionnaires as tools, interviews, observations, content analysis, and research synthesis. And of course, at a higher level, I put it a meta-analysis as a research. A meta-analysis is analysis of already research, published research results. And then you come to another part, that tools. Most of the research techniques can also use some of these tools, questionnaires. For example, interviews, you can use a structured questionnaire, a structured interview schedule. Scales, survey can use questionnaires as well as scales. Scales here I use at the to something which is we say that standardized scales, particularly to, in order to observe attitudes, in order to see the achievement on a particular dimension, we use standardized scales. Then you have interview schedules, particularly used for interviews. Observations, you have observation sheets, checklist, and of course test. Test here in the sense you can have standardized test or teacher developed test. You can yourself design a test particularly used in the context of achievement test in a particular subject. And if you are looking at the performance of different groups of students in a particular subject, say rural urban background and your teaching in that sense, or the gender specific learning outcomes, then probably you will use a test designed by you. So that's test. So you have methods, techniques, and tests. When you are deciding your research design, you need to be very clear about what method you will use, what are the techniques that you will use, and what are the tools that you use to gather your research data. In the same process, you will also like to see and decide the sampling techniques and the sample size, and this is very important, and this is where most of the problem in research starts, because you take a wrong sample and we try to generalize the findings, and in the process we lose track of our research work. The representativeness of your research this sample and the determination of the sample size has profound effect on the research issues and the research results. In the process, I would like to explain why it is important that a wrong research sample will give you wrong research result. A sample is very important because we are not in also position to do a research of the whole of the population. A sample is something which is part of the population to be studied. in order to have economy of research, it is, and also time, financial as well as time limits prohibits us to do a whole population research. We cannot do a survey giving it to all the persons, and that will not be cost effective. Therefore, a sampling is done to reduce the time of the research, and also to see that the cost of research is not very huge. And therefore, statistically, if you take a representative sample, and when you say if you take a good amount of sample which is probably sufficiently large enough, your research the distribution will be normal, and you will find that after certain amount of the sample size, the research results will not vary significantly. That is what statistically the normal distribution also means. But you need to decide a sample size which is true representative of the whole group, and therefore various sampling techniques are also proposed in the research literature. You have to see a stratified sample, so that you take specific groups of sample from each category of person. Suppose if your focus is on rural urban, then the representation of both rural and urban should be proportionate. Similarly, if you have a gender bias, that's a male and female ratio should also be proportionate. Suppose you have first division, second division, third division students in this population, then you have to look into that proportion. So sampling is very important, and determination of sample size. Determination of sample size is very important. Most of the time we take a arbitrary kind of 10% sample. But there are literature which would allow you to determine your research sample size appropriately. For example, I often quote a article published way back in 1970 in Educational and Psychological Measurement. It gives a table to us that if you have a population of X, your sample size is N, and that is very useful to decide on a sample size. And if you go to the internet, for example, and use the Google search engine, you will also find and say that determination of sample size. You will find a lot of mathematical Java applets that will allow you to say if your sample size is X, what should be the if your population size is X, what should be the N or the sample size. So it will, these days it's very easier to find out a rich sample size. But once you do these techniques, for example, use a table that I was referring to, or use the web search and get a sample size. It is up to you to how to utilize that sample size, particularly in the context of your research, as I mentioned about stratified sample and others. And this is one thing that is mostly used as a random sampling. And a random sampling is particularly done to reduce the biasness of the researcher. The researcher ideally should not be biased to pick off the research samples. The population that you are using, the sample that you are using as a researcher, you should not be biased in distributing the questionnaire per se. For example, if you are distributing a questionnaire and you distribute your questionnaire to select group of persons, then you are getting results based on those people you have decided to. But if you distribute randomly based on the random number charts, then you are not looking at the profile of the learner. If you are sending to all the students, and based on the you have a number, random tables, and then you are giving to the specific group. In that sense, it is emphasized that it is not haphazard. When it's a random sampling, it is not done haphazardly. It has a systematic process that you use every fourth in the random table chart. Or if you say you want to take every odd in the list, so you decide, or every fifth in the list, you decide certain things. It is a systematic random. That's why you say systematic random sampling. That means you, in a sense, you give every sample in the population the possibility of getting selected in the research. That's called the probability of getting X in the research sample is equal. And that's a suggestion of random sampling and systematic random sampling, and I also emphasize about stratified random sampling. let's come to what are the components of a research proposal. You know, all these, the description and an explanation that I was trying to give so far are to make you aware of different issues involved in preparation of your research proposal. Ideally, if you look into the research proposal, you will find these 6 points, very important 6 points. The title of your work, an introduction, the statement of the problem, procedures of the study. Essentially, I am talking about the research design here. The time and cost estimates, especially if you want to give your research proposal to an external agency, not particularly in this context when we are talking about your research project, because this is a research project to be taken by yourself. But at the same time, I would emphasize that you must know your cost estimates as well. So if you are doing a cost estimate of the project, there is nothing wrong in that. And then of course appendices. Let me take one by one here. The title of the project. As far as you take the title of your research project, this should be precise and accurate. I would emphasize the you should do that your proposal is the title is unambiguous, and you should avoid using long titles. Here I give 2 examples. One says extended contact program and learning. Somebody might say this is very precise, and it uses the principle of brevity, and therefore this is good, but it doesn't clarify to the reader what the research is going to talk about. Okay, somebody will say I am going to explain in the introduction, but to a large extent, if you use a title which gives precisely what you mean to achieve, that is going to attract the reader or the proposal person who is the teacher who is evaluating your research proposal. Particularly, therefore, I would emphasize, if the first one is a proposal somebody is trying to make, I would like to advise that you change it to something like this: effect of extended contact program on student achievement. Now this is something better in the sense it tries to emphasize that how ECP had or has an effect on the achievement of student learning. In that sense, achievement in this sense is the outcomes in terms of examination. So I would prefer something like this to the previous one. And the next component of the research proposal is introduction. The introduction is the most important component of your research proposal. It is from where you are trying to set the background of your research. It is where here you are trying to give the assessor of your research proposal that you are interested in this research, and you have certain understanding of the research problem. So you are trying to give an orientation of the topic in this proposal in the introduction component. You explain the importance and relevance of the topic. Remember these keywords: orientation to the reader, explain the importance, underline, relevance of the topic, emphasizes here, and then you also justify the choice of the topic, why you have chosen this topic, why there is need of some amount of research in this area. One could very well say that there is no research in this area, then therefore I would like to do research. That could be one reason. The other way, that this is the problem I have faced and I would like to try to answer into the problem. So you have to justify why you would like to take a topic. And in overall, I would like to say that this is the place where you also provide that you have a substantive reading of the related literature, that you have also undergone and tried to find out answers to the research problem, and the existing research literature is to some extent deficient of answering your question, and therefore you also relate and provide an overview of relevant literature at this stage. Some people would part it this and say review of literature. That's fine if somebody is writing a review of literature separately, but if you can relate your review of literature and background to the study and put it in the introduction, there is nothing wrong. The next component is the statement of the problem. Some people try to include the statement of problem as the part of the introduction or part of the background. So that's okay. if you would like to do. But there is a little difference here. What is the statement of the problem? Some people even also say the title itself is a statement of problem, but I would like to emphasize the statement of problem is something that clarifies further the intent of the investigator. It explains that you, in a different words, what you intend to do. In a sense, it provides an overview of your objectives, or in a sense, it provides your questions that point us to your research. So what kind of hypothesis you are looking at. So those things are presented in the problem in a descriptive manner. And that leads me to the difference of objective, hypothesis and question, and how you will utilize in your research problem. When you say statement of the problem, you say I just give 3 different examples and the same concept put in a different ways. Say my objective is to measure the level of achievement of ECV participant. This is my objective. I put it the hypothesis in a different way, and you can find out the difference here. I say there is no significant difference between the achievement of male and female participants of ECP. So here you will see I am putting it in a hypothesis manner which I will test after research. And here you will say that no significant difference. You will say some of those who will know the different types of hypothesis. This is a null hypothesis. There are different types of hypothesis, and here I have used a null hypothesis that I will test at the end of the research. I will say whether there is any difference between male and female students in terms of achievement after participation in ACP. So here I have said there is no difference. So at the end of the result, I may find there is a significant difference amongst the male and female participant. The third one I have put in the same thing in a question form. Say I have said how do ECP participants perform in the test. Here I have not given any variables like male, female or so. Here I have tried to put it in a question form. So your research problem, your statement of the research could form in various ways. You can use objective form, you can use hypothesis form, you can use question form. It is not necessary that there will be a hypothesis always. So therefore in an exploratory study I would expect that you have only objective set. So there may not be an hypothesis. But if you are trying to do an experimental research, I would expect that there will be certainly some hypothesis, more than one hypothesis to work on. And the next component of your research work is the procedures. That's what we are talking about, methods. Then we talked about techniques and tools. Here your objective is to explain what you are going to use and why you are going to use the particular method, technique or tools. There has to be linkages, there has to be rationality of using this. You must explain the rationale of using a particular method or technique or the tools, and this has to have a relationship with your objectives or the statement of problem. You just cannot choose something just like that somebody X has done in another research and I am going to do that. But your research problem has to have certain relationship with the research methods that you are going to use. In this process you use, if you are going to use certain tools, if you are how you are going to develop those tools. Are you going to use a standardized tool? Have you taken permission to use that particular tool? All these things has to be explained. If you are going to develop a tool, how you are going to develop that tool? Suppose you want to develop a questionnaire for your research. How you are going to develop that questionnaire? How you are going to do the pre-testing of the questionnaire? Because in order to get valid research results, your questionnaire should be appropriate. The questionnaire should have reliability. The questionnaire should have validity. So how you are going to establish the reliability and validity of the research? If you are using a pre-designed questionnaire and you know the reliability and validity of those questionnaire, use that as an indicator to justify that you have chosen this particular one. If you want to develop a interview schedule, do tell that you are going to develop an interview schedule. Whatever tools that you are, describe how you are going to gather the research data. Whether this will be mailed questionnaire or you will self-administer the questionnaire, how you are going to administer a questionnaire. If you are going to interview people, how you are going to interview. If you intend to do a big research, and if you use many more reporter or interviewer, how you are going to tell them, how you are going to brief them to have standardization in the process. If you are using different observers, if you are using an observation technique, then how you are going to brief them, how the observation checklists will be scored. All these things have to be explained in the process. And again, as I emphasized earlier, the population. You have to tell clearly what is the expected size of the population. From the population, how you are going to determine the sample size, and what is the sampling procedures, whether you are using a stratified sampling, or you are using a systematic sampling, or a random sample method, or a purposive sample method. You need to explain different types of what sampling method, sampling procedure that you want to use, and in the process how you are going to use the data. After you get the questionnaires or the data collected, how you are going to treat statistically these data need to explain in the procedures. That's what I say, procedures of the study. Some people particularly here use the research design, because it is this thing that you are going to use when you actually work the research, start the research work. The introduction part, the statement of problem are your justifications for doing the research. Those are your drivers. I will say, as a researcher, the statement of the research problem or the introduction are the drivers. Those drive you, keep you on your toes, provide you interest, stimuli to do research. But the procedures, as some people call it, the research design, are your plan of action. It is the plan of action that you put to practice when actually you do start the research work. And of course, the next section of your research proposal should be the time and cost estimate, as I emphasize. Particularly, I would emphasize this to the students of PGDDE. Extremely sorry, this is PGDHE. As a teacher of PGDDE, I am always go into that line. Extremely sorry for that. PGDHE students have limited time at their disposal. Particularly, you are taking a course which is of 1 year duration, and you have to complete this program on time. If you want to complete this program on time, I would suggest that don't take a research project which is very big enough. So you should take a project which is small enough that within the stipulated time availability view, and many of you are working teachers in colleges and universities, and as we know, we all have our own teaching load, and within that framework we are working on this course. And therefore, I would say prepare a schedule of activities for yourself, that what we are going to do at what time, starting from your preparing your research proposal, sending it to the School of Education, getting back the approval within 4 weeks of time, and then starting the questionnaire and everything. Prepare a schedule, put it in the research proposal, how you are going to. It is very important that the schedule that you prepare is going to be a kind of an indicator for yourself and put you on the timeline. Most of the time we forget to do that, and we are lost, and we don't get a reminder for ourselves if we don't do that. And therefore, I have emphasized here the time management skill required by you, and therefore I am trying to emphasize that prepare a schedule, put it on your wall so that you work on. Sometime if you find that you have sent your proposal to the school and you have not received back, and your time schedule is that you should get it in 4 weeks time, if you don't receive that, you can very well remind us in the school for that purpose as well. And as I emphasized earlier, that the cost, you must work out the cost. Design of the proposal, starting from the design of the proposal to the questionnaire design, distribution of the questionnaire, that you use the postal cost, or your preparation of the report, your use of statistical technique, computer hiring time, all those things. Do a rough estimate of your cost so that you also know that how much time and money investment that you are putting into it. Many a time I will also suggest that do a cost estimate of the time that you devote to your work. So you know the value of your research project. It is not just a component to do, get your research degree, get your degree on PGDHE or any other degree. It is also the kind of investment that you have made to get that degree. So you should know the value of your research in financial terms as well. And of course the financial support required if you are doing a research work other places. And just we'll take this question after just the last brief presentation. We'll take that question from Koraput. The last component of your research proposal is your appendices. Your appendices will have some kind of a bibliography or reference if you have cited certain things in the introduction part, and of course a tentative chapter outline and any other information that you think will be useful for your assessor of your research proposal to take into account. In that sense, you will have your research proposal. If you use an introduction, the statement of the research problem, then you have your research design, the procedures to be used, then the time estimates and a small appendices. In that process, your research proposal will be some kind of a 3 to 4 pages typed document that you would send it to the School of Education. I think I have taken more time than expected, but I think we have enough time for some good discussion, and I request all the centers to start asking their questions through the phone-in line or send through the faxes. Thank you.
So I hope the brief, descriptive, illustrative and analytical presentation of Dr. Sanjay Mishra has provoked your brain, provoked your thoughts, and you would come up with several questions. We already have one question waiting. We would now take the question. Could you please?
Koraput, if you are online, please.
Is Koraput online?
Good afternoon, Esa and Sanjay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
It was a nice presentation by both of you. However, I had a few observations to make.
Yes.
In fact, what we discussed from the opening session was primarily on pure research. One of my friends who is a resource person here will take on it. In regard to sample size, now I have a feeling the sample size can be more if the group is heterogeneous. It may be smaller, even much smaller, if the group is homogeneous, instead of having a fixed parameter of sample size as possibly discussed over there. And in a research topic as suggested as a sample by Dr. Sanjay, that effect of ECP, Extended Contact Program, on student achievement, I find it's not researchable really. As I think you would correct me, because what we have been dealing with in the ECP is something else than measuring achievement. And therefore the objective even stated, and for that matter the hypothesis, do not seem to be realistic. I think you'll excuse me. This observation I had to make. Now I'm handing over to one of my friends, the resource person. He will talk something more on the research.
Thank you, Karthik. Please, you can ask your question now.
Comments, please.
While we are waiting for the call, would you like to?
Yeah, I think we have lost the connection, and thank you, Dalai Saab. And I think you rightly pointed out, I would go to the topic that I said, that this is just an example. I think one has to look into how if you say that that is the topic I say, that the effect of ECP and student achievement.
Sanjay, I think we are getting the call, so let's take that question as well. Yeah, okay. Please, Chennai, please go ahead.
Hello.
Yes.
My question is,
yes,
what should be the size of the research proposal, either in terms of number of pages or in terms of number of words?
Okay.
So we
I have another question.
Yes.
If I am to submit the project report in the December, is there any specific time? Either it should be submitted before July or December of a year. And if I am to submit in a particular period, what should be the time duration or gap between the submission of research proposal and the report?
So I will take it one by one. Your first question was about the size of the project proposal you make. School of Education has not prescribed any particular size in words or in number of pages. Mostly it depends on the type of a topic you select and what Dr. Mishra has described here, the components you have to include and how you go about writing it. Mostly it will come to about 4 to 5 pages.
That's what 4 to 5 pages.
Not more than that. And there is nothing very, strictly we talk about that, like, these many words or these many pages. If it is 7 pages also fine. If it is well written and well explained, 3 pages also okay. So we never examine and approve the project proposal based on the number of words or the number of pages. What you have written there, whether it is self-explanatory, whether it's going to help you to really conduct your research, that is our criteria. And to come to the second question, I think that was about
Examination.
any particular time. No, there is no particular time we have prescribed. You can, after getting the project proposal approval, you start conducting your research, and it is up to you how much time you would take to conduct that research. In obvious case, you cannot conduct a research overnight. You may not be even able to conduct a research in 1 week's time. So after conducting the research, you will have to sit down to analyze the data, then you have to prepare the research report. So it would take time. So it is entirely up to the student how much time you would take, and it is entirely up to the topic you have selected, how much time you would take to conduct, if it is a survey, and if 3 or 4 colleges are involved in that survey, obviously it's going to take some time. And I understand you are all working teachers, therefore you will have to fit in your time along with your usual working schedule. So that will again take more time. So we have no particular time frame for that. And I think for research, it's never given that way. So you prepare a research report and submit it to us. And once that is not submitted to the School of Education, please remember that. Research reports are not submitted to the School of Education. It is submitted to the Students Registration and Evaluation Division. So please remember that. Otherwise, it will further delay in getting it evaluated. So
there is also a thing that it was asked that when to submit in the thing. So to SRED, if you are submitting before December, then your results are reflected in the December kind of things. And if you are submitting after that, it will go back to the next thing. So it is up to you as a student when you are how you are planning, what is your scheduling of your research, and how you would like to complete the program in that sense. So if you look at the university's procedures, then if you are submitting by before December, your project will be taken care of in December examination. So that's another important factor for the student to look at.
Pardon?
Yes, please.
Yes, please go ahead. Srinagar, you can ask your question.
Hello.
Hello? Yes? Please ask your question.
My question is that you have not mentioned how to write and analyze the research report.
How to? Please repeat your
I got
question.
it. Draw and analyze the
Write
research.
and analyze the report.
Okay.
This step has been missed.
Okay.
Could you please throw light on this?
Okay. Let me thank you, Srinagar. The first thing, I will go back to the question that was asked, comments that was from Koraput. I was telling that the topic could be researchable, and then I was telling could be debatable also. So I am not going to the debate. That could be researchable, but it will vary what kind of objective one would like to take if that title that I gave an example will be taken care of. But the other thing that is very important point that was made by Mr. Dalai is that the sample size. If particularly sample size is the size of the sample, if you are doing a quantitative research, then you need a large sample size to generalize the data. But if you are doing a qualitative research, then research from the qualitative perspective, I'm not qualitative research, please don't take it a qualitative research. The quantitative research are also qualitative research. Research from the qualitative point of view, qualitative paradigm point of view, then your sample size could be less. For example, there are research I have seen which are taken use of 15 students. You can do a research, a PhD level work, taking into 15 students for that.
Could be even lesser than
that. So it is possible to take about that sample size. It was in the context sample size, which we are talking of sample size determination, all these things in the form of quantitative paradigm.
And Sanjay, it's also like, you know, even if the what kind of experimental design you use.
Yes.
If it is even in quantitative research, if
Yes.
it is experimental research, you may have a control group and an
Yes,
experimental group.
which will have around 30, 40
Yes, that's
students.
all. You don't need. Whereas if you go for a survey type of a research, you might have had to hundreds of sample. Otherwise, you cannot generalize. So because your statistical technique, when you are using it, it needs to have certain amount of a sample, and also, as Sanjay said it earlier, to generalize from your research findings, you have to have a representative sample. So if yes,
Yeah.
please, Dehradun, you can go ahead with your question. Dehradun, please.
Yeah. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I'm Aruna calling from Dehradun.
Yes.
I have a question. So could you suggest the thrust areas where research could be done? And one more thing, could you suggest the topics of research in distant education and higher education? Thank you.
I think you can answer to the content part of that, but I think we are not going to suggest topic to you. You are teachers, and this is not a session that we would suggest, and I don't think any research guide also will suggest a topic to you. You will have to identify a problem. That is also part of research. That is also part of learning to do. So therefore, I am very sorry to say that you will have to identify the problem. So because we have said how to identify a problem. So that should take care of that. And Sanjay, please.
Yeah. Aruna, you have to think for yourself a topic that stimulates you and interests you, and the thrust areas are basically should be from the courses that you have taken into, that the courses that is covered under the PG diploma in higher education, or if you relate these courses to your practical experiences, I'm sure you will come out with large number of topics. So the thrust area being the courses, I would suggest that you take topics of your own interest. And I would go back to the question of that was asked from Srinagar, is specifically on we didn't talk about analysis of research reports, statistical techniques, precisely because this is a session on preparing research proposals, not preparing research reports. And I would suggest that one has to go through what kind of research data have been collected. Once you know various kinds of data that has been collected and your objectives that are in place, then only you can see what kind of research statistical techniques that you would like to use. And therefore, this session is not devoted to that, and therefore we are constrained to talk about the statistical techniques here. Though I would like to emphasize one thing, Aisa, that particularly the sample size related issue, particularly when we are doing, because these are all related to statistics and the research design and research proposal. In the experimental design also, if we have anything to do statistical interpretation, if you are doing some statistical analysis, preferably your sample size should be more than 30. That is what we always suggest. So that will be a kind of caution to look into, that if you are trying to do a statistical interpretation, the minimum sample size you should have is 30. Less than 30, you will only be able to give numbers which will be devoid of any kind of a generalization possibility.
But yes, Cochin, please go ahead. Cochin, you can ask your question now.
Yeah. The question is this.
Yes.
Regarding components, you have title, introduction, statement of the problem,
Yes.
procedures, time, cost estimate, etc.
That's right.
My question is this. Should we include objectives and hypothesis as a different section, or should it be under statement of the problem? That is the first question.
Okay.
Second question is, should we include all the details regarding each tools in the complete format in the research proposal?
So in the
Third question is on research proposal. That is whether we should send a research proposal to the School of Education and the final report to the evaluation division.
yes, that's right.
Thank you.
I will start with your last question. You are expected to send your research proposal to School of Education. School of Education will examine it and approve it. If not approved, will make suggestions and will send it to you. You will have to review it and send it back to School of Education. Once you receive your approved project proposal, you can start conducting your research. Once you are ready with your research, the findings, the analysis, everything is over, please prepare your report and submit it to the SR&D division. From there, it comes to the school. So I hope you have got that point. Now we will take a call from Chennai and will answer to your remaining questions.
Yeah.
Chennai, please. Chennai, you can ask your question now.
We need to know that the type of statistical method to be used for the research, particularly after collecting the survey from the purposive sampling or stratified sampling or systematic sampling.
Okay.
The data is what we are collecting, what type of statistical method we have to apply for that, where we can get the guidelines by that.
Okay, so I would just respond to that. Dr. Mishra already told you, like, we are not going into the nitty-gritty of statistical techniques right now. I can just generally say that the statistical technique you choose based on certain things, the kind of sampling techniques you have used, and the nature of the data. So based on that, you will have to choose your statistical technique to analyze your data. You can get information about the statistical techniques used in educational research from books dealing with educational research. Dr. Mishra?
Aisa, the issue that was asked, the questions that were asked from Cochin, particularly to inclusion, where to include the objectives and hypotheses. As I mentioned earlier, it is not necessary that all research problems or research questions will be having hypothesis. Particularly in the exploratory research, you will not have hypothesis. And as you rightly asked this question, that where to put it. During my presentation, you have seen that I put it within the statement of the research problem. But if you are putting it as a separate heading, that objectives, nothing wrong in that. Because at that time also I mentioned some people put it separately. Similarly, if you have hypothesis in your research, it's more than one hypothesis, then you put it separately to explain that. Particularly, highlighting these things will also help that you have dealt with these issues separately. So I will not say that you put it separately inbuilt into the statement of problem, because I emphasize the statement of problem is a descriptive process. Whereas when we are talking about a question, when we are talking of objectives, and when we are talking about a hypothesis, they are very pinpointed, precise pinpointed questions, precisely bulleted form objectives placed there.
And hypothesis will always be after objectives,
Yeah.
because first you frame the objectives. Your objectives give you very good idea about what you are going to do and what you are going to find out. So that is why we insist that you should write the objectives in the appropriate fashion. Many of you might have received your research proposal back suggesting that your objectives are not written in the appropriate way, because that helps you to conduct your research properly. And hypotheses are derived from the objectives. So therefore, hypothesis will be written after objectives. We will now take question from Bhopal. Bhopal, you can go ahead with your question.
Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
sir. Sir, I want to ask one question. That I am a student of literature. Then
Bhopal.
how I will make statistics or in this proposal? Can I take some others' help or what I have to do this?
The television set in Bhopal need to make it the sound little lower.
So we are requesting to all of you, when you are making a question or when you are asking a question to us, please keep the volume of your television low, because that gets echoed here. I hope you have understood it.
I think Koraput.
Koraput is again online. Koraput, please, you can ask your question.
I am Dr. N. Pradhan, resource person of this center.
Good afternoon, sir.
To Dr. Mishra. Dr. Mishra, you have nicely explained that our PGDHE learners can select problems from their experiences, previous research and actual problems they face. Most of our learners here are teachers, practicing teachers, working in different colleges.
Right.
Hence, in my opinion, they would find it easier and comfortable to select problems from their practices or problems they are facing while discharging different curricular and co-curricular functions.
Right.
So, here I would request you to highlight on action research. You have in fact never touched on that point.
Right.
Thank you.
What action research is not?
Thank you, Dr. Pradhan. I think you have pointed out a very important issue, particularly in the realm of research. But let me first take the third question of Cochin that was left. Particularly details of each tool, whether you should take details of each tools or not is very important. I would emphasize that if you are using specific tools, details in the sense how much details you would go. But when I say about the tools, I say rationality of using specific tools. You say why you would like to use this tool and how this tool, the reliability and validity of this tool. That's all at this stage. If you are trying to say create a new tool for yourself, tell how you are going to create a new tool at this stage as when the proposal is prepared. But when your research report will be prepared, you have to give more details. So what is expected here is the rationality of using that tool vis-a-vis your research questions or research objectives or hypotheses, and the reliability and validity of this tool. So that's what for that particular question. And especially coming to the question, probably I have understood to some extent about the question from Bhopal, that I would say that sorry, you can take help to the extent that the work is done by you as a student. This is a project work to be done by you, and PGDHE course is meant for teachers from all disciplines. Whether you are from social sciences or humanities or sciences, you are doing a research project, and this is not a big one in that sense. So you can take a research project which is small enough, and you without taking much external help, you can solve the work on your project. But you can take very well your help. You are now in the ECP. You can ask the resource persons in Bhopal sitting there, what kind of help they can make, particularly to explain you further what are the kind of things that we discussed here today. Beyond that, they will be helping you today to formulate your topic, and also guide you in the process of preparation of your research proposal to that extent. But the real work will have to be done by you. And therefore, I would say the help is limited to the extent to facilitate your own learning process and conduct of research, and not to be really done by somebody else. And okay, Bhopal,
yes.
Please.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir,
Hello.
my subject is literature. Then I have to choose a topic from literature or from content related to PGDHE program.
See,
That's what I was explaining.
there is no compulsion like, you have to choose it from literature or you have to choose it from any other area like. See, Dr. Mishra had explained to you earlier, you can either link it with your PGDHE program, whatever you have learned it there. Or you can select a very general education topic. Obviously, it cannot be from, say, if you are from English literature. Your topic, if you are talking about Shakespeare, you want to do some project in that, that obviously will not merit as educational research. So you have to have that component of educational research. I hope you have understood what we are discussing. So that's, we call it educational research. So you will have to choose
that, ma'am,
yes?
Can I take help from others?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to explain. You can take
for statistical analysis or
you can take help from others.
Other thing.
See, you can take help from others, you can learn, you can refer some educational research books, and what we actually do is, you will have to first write a proposal. You should know what you are doing and what kind of data, the sample you have used to collect the data. All these things will matter finally when you sit down to analyze your data. So at that time you can take help, or while even you are preparing your research proposal. If you come from a college or a university, I am very sure you will have colleagues from mathematics faculty or statistics. So you can take their help, discuss with them, there is no problem there. But ultimately, like as a student of educational research, you should know what you are doing. That is what we are trying to tell you.
The major emphasis is that you can take help to the extent that it facilitates your learning process, not to allow things to be done by somebody else. That is what I will put as the major issue here as far as this question that came from the Bhopal Center. One important question that was, and rather I would say comment.
Yeah, Sanjay, we also are running out of time, very short of time, so I think we'll have to wind up within a minute.
For that. I think Dr. Pradhan from Koraput made a very important point and emphasized that action research should have been emphasized in this session, and I think this is very important point, and I would request all the resource person in all the centers that this point, a learning input that has come from Koraput Regional Center may be taken forward in all the centers to discuss the issues as far as the people of PGDHE. They can look into problem-based research, which we call action research, that will result into immediate outcomes. I would say action research in that. So I think the students will get tremendous benefit of taking off action research projects that will be smaller enough to and quicker enough to do.
No, but I would like to say that action research is different from what we are proposing here. There is a difference. You are not supposed to submit an action research proposal to us. You are not supposed to submit a report based on your action research, because action research are different from what we are proposing or what you are expected to do. So to that extent, like you will have to do a research based on a systematic research based on what we have discussed right now. Action research, yes, I do agree with the faculty, the coordinator there, that it is very much part of a teacher's day-to-day functioning. Therefore, we will be very happy and grateful if you, all the coordinators sitting across the country, if you take this topic up and discuss with our students. I'm very sorry, I'm sure you have several more questions to ask us, and we also are very happy to interact with you. We would have liked this session to continue, but unfortunately the time is up and we have to wind up, and we would like to know how you have benefited from this session and the earlier sessions and the sessions we are going to have in the next few days. So we would like to receive feedback from you, because it will help us in our next batch of students. So please do let us know whether you have benefited from this and you have enjoyed, which way we can make a difference to the next batch of students. Let me thank the resource person. Sanjay, thank you very much, and let me thank all of you for taking part in this discussion, a very lively discussion, and I'm very happy to learn that you are all keen to interact with us, and we always look forward to interacting with our students through teleconferencing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aisa.